Welcome to BNFM. To start, if you've ever sat through one of David's presentations, you already should have known that this was coming. All right, I had to give a little,
Yeah, that's great.
So welcome to BNFM, where we get real about what's happening at Bottleless Nation. I'm Kylie, and today we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most important roles in our company. Our CFO, David, is in the room with us, and by the end of this conversation, I promise that his job will make a little bit more sense to everyone. David, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay, so to start, I always like to ask a little bit more about you. So give me a little bit of information and everyone else about what has you haven't been at Bottleless Nation forever, obviously. So what has your trajectory looked like? Where did you start? Have you always been working in finance? Give us a little bit of background for us.
Yeah, I'm at the end of my career. I've been working for 40 years. My background is in entrepreneurial and starting up companies and growing them quickly. So I have a small company background, a startup, restructure, things that are ambiguous. We try to put structure and systems in place for rapid growth.
Very cool.
I've started several companies of my own. I've done many venture-backed ventures, kind of like this one, which is financed by a family office, and a lot of Wall Street work to grow various finance companies. Most of my time has been spent in specialty finance, so subprime auto lending, equipment leasing, or equipment rentals, all of which are very similar, and the background similar to this, where we rent equipment and provide a service. And my role here has migrated. I started at Pure Water Partners back in 2021, and I was chief operating officer there, and we went through the rapid growth and the solidifications of their systems, and then we hired Alan Clayton to replace me. And then I moved to the CFO role of Bottleless Water Holdings, which is over Bottleless, all the companies. So, the manufacturing, the field, and Pure Water Partners. I still am involved in the direct management of Pure Water Partners, but Jackie and Alan take the lead on most issues in Sandpoint locally.
Okay. And have you always been in Indy?
No,
you're not even.
I'm not in Indy.
You're not even in Indy. I think I always assumed that you were. I didn't even know. So where are you?
I'm located in Salt Lake City, Utah, in a suburb called Highland, Utah. I work out of my home, and I do travel quite a bit, at least 12 to 14 times a year to Sandpoint and to Indy and to various corporate events that we hold. But, to be honest with you, teams in the accounting function, the teams works extremely well because we like to have meetings with our computer screens present, because all our work is very technical, numerical, spreadsheets, accounting systems, subsystems like Fishbowl and Aspire and Waterdesk. So when we have meetings, it's usually technically orientated, and everybody's on their PCs anyway. So it works. It's been working pretty well. I do show up in Indy about once a quarter. Several of those trips are scheduled, and several of those trips are unscheduled for special opportunities.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's good to know. And honestly, it's so true about the meetings. Like sometimes it is just like easier to meet over Teams because it's like, we need to, I work in a technical version just completely opposite of yours, where it's like, okay, what do you think about how this looks? If we're both looking at it together, it makes that so much easier.
Makes it so much easier.
So I definitely agree with that. Okay, that's interesting. So then what other no, go ahead.
I was just saying, I also work in 4 time zones. So
Right.
my days can start early and end late because the primary investors are in New York, the banks are in Chicago, the main office is in Indy Eastern, Chicago Central. I'm in Utah, and Sandpoint is in Pacific. So
Mm-hmm.
it actually extends my day, my productive day, by a couple hours, which is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, yeah. I know I'm right in the middle. I'm central time, so it's kind of nice if, because I'm meeting with people who might be on either time
Hmm.
zone, so it's kind of good to be in the middle. I'm not forced one way or the other. So, yeah.
Right.
And then what was your journey into Pure Water Partners? When did you start with Pure Water Partners?
I started as a consultant March 22nd, 2021,
Oh, okay, so
and was
post-COVID.
offered
Okay.
a full-time job in May, and um, and then I traveled to Sandpoint a lot in the first
Okay.
year, and then we scaled that back, and then made the transition to the CFO.
Okay.
So,
And
but
then what would you say when you made that transition working from purely with Pure Water Partners to working with Bottleless Nation? How did that shift kind of your focus and what you were thinking
yeah,
about going from just one entity to all the entities?
right. So my focus got away from operations at Sandpoint,
Okay.
and we hired Alan Clayton, who's very capable. He's been 30 years of finance company operations, specifically in customer service and collections, and other things. So
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with Alan in the past. So he slid in and took us to the next level, in a way that I could not. He
Cool.
lives in Sandpoint, and he's um, more of a specialist in the
Mm-hmm.
type of work that he does, that the groundwork that Pure Water does, billing and collecting, um, deficiency recoveries, suing people that owe us money, customer
Fun
service
stuff.
operations, and things like that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so he's really good at that stuff. I'm a finance guy who does the banking, the
Mm-hmm.
strategy, credit analysis. I've done all those things, but he's done a lot more of it. So
Yeah.
it was a big pickup for us to get him, and freed me up to take on different roles and responsibilities. So making the jump, from a specialty finance company where you're very focused on one company to, at the time, five companies. We're kind of a unique holding companies because we represent multiple types of industries. For example,
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing with Omniflow, Waterdesk, which is a software company, um, the old co H2O and Artesian when I started, are sales and service organizations in the field with vans and salespeople and customer
Mm-hmm.
service and routing. So that's a very distinct, operational flow. And then Pure Water Partners, which is a finance company. It's easy to give money away. It's really hard to get it back with a profit. So you
Mm-hmm.
have so Pure Water has 40,000 customers and services 120 dealers. So it's the operations there are very detailed, very IT, extreme levels of contract administration, um, at scale. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
different operational. So we have literally five different fundamental organizations within our holdings company, with different reporting requirements and different accounting procedures and different GAAP rules, different regulatory environments, different skill sets. And that's the beauty
Mm-hmm.
of it, is that we have software people at Waterdesk, we have salespeople at Bottleless Nation now that we merged the companies effective January 1, 2026, so just a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we have manufacturing professionals at Omniflow, which is totally different, engineers, research and development, software development, but not the typical PC server side software. It's chip programming and
Yeah.
machine programming and flashware and programming a water cooler. So our water coolers actually have software in them that runs them, and we have programmers that run that. So it's totally different type of programming, all the way to financial professionals. We collect a lot of money at Pure Water, a lot, and
Yeah.
and thousands of payments that have to be applied correctly to the right accounts, thousands of contracts to administer and archive, like librarian level stuff, and then thousands of customer inquiries and phone calls every month that need to be handled in a professional way. So you can see it's a diverse set of operations with a diverse set of reporting, with a diverse set of GAAP principles that all need to be kind of organized. And then at the end of the day, we add it all together with special rules and eliminations and consolidations, and we get one big, financial report for the entire entity. So it's
Yeah.
a bit of a challenge to get everybody thinking in their own tunnel, yet
Hmm.
stay together as a single company on the financial operations.
Yeah. I always wondered how things were set up on the back end because I know how complicated things can be with just one entity and
Mm-hmm.
all of the rules that come with that. Because my fiance owns a business, and like that in itself is a very small operation in comparison to five different entities in different markets in
Right.
different areas of the country in different states, and there's just so many things to think about, and just having one is hard. Doing all of them seems very overwhelming. So I guess
Well,
how do you do that? Like what
well,
where
you,
did
you do it with
you
the
know
team.
yeah.
Alan does a good job at Pure Water. Jackie Awinju is one of the original
Hmm.
founders of the entire company. She lives in Sandpoint, and she's the controller slash CFO of Pure Water.
Hmm.
Uh, and th- they do a very good job because they've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, on field and servicing, we have JG, who joined the company just a few months ago, but he's a very talented controller, and he's building out his accounting team on that end and on the flow. And then I
And
do
so
hire
for those,
consultants,
oh yeah, okay. And so for
like at
those who
on.
don't know, what would a controller do? Like what's their main
Okay.
responsibility?
The controller, as the word kind of infers,
Hmm.
controls the financial transactions of the organization. He's
Okay.
observing all the cash that's coming into the bank accounts. He's recording them appropriately. He is paying bills and recording the expenses appropriately. So there's a process. A bill comes in, oh, it's travel expense for a hotel. So you put it
Hmm.
in the travel expense category under hotels.
Yeah.
Likewise, and so forth. So when we're asking for receipts or backup information or what's this for, etc., we're really looking for a way to put it in the right category. So we
Hmm.
understand where our revenues are coming from, and we understand where our expenses are coming from. Now, in
Hmm.
relationship to that, he's in charge of the accounting systems. So all the journal entries, all the adjustments, the bank reconciliations, liability management on the technical accounting side runs through him.
Hmm.
So it'd be very difficult. It'd be impossible for me individually to do the five companies.
Yeah.
So we have to have, um, we have a CFO who, and I specialize in certain things. We can discuss that later. But the controllers specialize in knowing their operations, setting up control procedures for the expenses, approval processes, documentation and filing, prepping the organization for financial audits or bank audits. Our bankers do check in on us. We borrow a
Hmm.
lot of money, and they send very smart people with sharp pencils to ask very hard questions. So we
Yeah,
have to be able to respond to those questions in detail.
definitely. And for the people, I think sometimes when you're not handling, you're talking about people sending in receipts and things like that. For those who aren't handling and doing the controlling, like the importance of having those things, because I know sometimes it can feel, tedious and monotonous and those types of
Right.
things, but like the importance of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
I don't have a
We
lot in
don't,
what I do, but I know others do.
right. We have operations in, I don't know how many states right now, 17, 18, 19 states plus
Hmm.
28 operations, 370-ish plus or minus employees. We're growing constantly. And so we have a dispersed operation, and we buy different things for different reasons in different industries. And it's just a lot of detailed work that we need the cooperation of everybody to get right. Now, this is for the
Definitely.
benefit of everybody too. If everybody cooperates, we get better financials. We can control expenses. We can maintain the financial health of the company better, and that's good for everybody.
For sure, for sure. Okay, going back to you because I want to stay focused
Hmm.
on you. Um, can you explain to everyone, what does a real week look like for you? Like what does this
Hmm.
week look? And I'm sure, like everyone's job it varies, but what does this week look like for you in what's coming across your desk and fires you're putting out and
Hmm.
conversations you're having?
Right. So a CFO's role is significantly different than the controller's role. The controller would be dealing with detailed revenues and expenses and a lot of technical detail in the accounting, which I get into. But
Okay.
my job is multifaceted. So I'll deal with the owners on a regular basis. I
Mm-hmm.
will deal with liquidity issues such as capital needs. How much money do we need to execute the expansion of, let's say, 4 offices? And
Mm-hmm.
we have other strategic goals um, that we're doing currently, such as Coupa, um,
Mm-hmm.
and and making sure we have the money in the right companies at the right times. So each company needs so much money to function, and we have money coming in from 5 different companies. We need to make sure that each company has the money they need to execute. So we
Yeah.
shift money between the 5 companies. So when Rick says, "Hey, we're one big company," yeah, we basically are, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because one operation supports the other, and there's synergies in cost reduction, et cetera. And we view it that way. And we also share resources financially between the organizations.
Yeah.
So that's a typical week. So that's our weekly cash management, short-term liquidity meetings, and meeting those needs.
Mm-hmm.
Working with bankers is a big portion of my job, one of my main jobs. So I structure lines of credit. We have approximately $165 million in financing set up currently, and that's to finance Pure Water Partners primarily and Omniflow. But we're always looking at additional lines of credit and additional things and
Mm-hmm.
ways to move the needle. Um,
Yeah.
so working with the banks, I generally have conversations or meetings every week related to something going on with a bank. It could be the bank covenants, the reporting requirements, audit requirements. Um, there's always something going on with the bank every week for me. I
Yeah.
also work on strategic initiatives, partnerships, and things like that. We have a growing partnership with Coupa, so there's financing required for that. There's technical stuff. How are we going to do this? If it involves one of the subsidiaries, then I go work with them on their financial planning and how much money they need, when, how much, and when. That you get that a lot from me. How much and when,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's budgeting, right? And
Yeah.
we're budgeting the growth of the company. We've grown a lot, and that creates challenges.
For sure.
both in hiring and training and policies and procedures and changing up things and IT, accounting, and capital requirements. Sometimes it could cost a couple $100,000 to do something. Okay, who do you call? David. Let's figure out where it comes from, and I'll work with ownership and the various companies and see what we can do about taking money from one place to another place and things like that. But that's the beauty of having a platform company and a holding company structure, is that we have those resources. Each company isn't a standalone. You
Mm-hmm.
have the cash flows of pure water to help support all the other entities and things like that. So you can only judge it um, from on top, because that's how we
Mm-hmm.
view it. One company, one set of resources, all together. Although we
Yeah.
legally and for taxes and structurally we have for various reasons such as liability protection and organizational structure, management needs, specialized skills, specialized systems. Like we could never manufacture using QuickBooks. It just doesn't work. We need
Mm-hmm.
Fishbowl or subsystems. So there's some natural systems that apply to the various industries that we, manufacturing, software, sales and service, finance. They're very different structurally, both legally, accounting, software systems, and skills and expertise. And that's
Yeah.
why you have the four different companies, because each company needs a radically different setup to function. But when they add them all together, we're an A through Z solution for water delivery,
Mm-hmm.
all the way through, and it works pretty well.
Yeah. Are there other companies that you know of that are set up similarly to us, or is it pretty
Not
unique?
not the A through Z.
Yeah.
Wellsys has manufacturing and sales and service,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not believe they have software, and I don't believe they have financing.
Yeah. Or but even
So
any other, not even water companies, but any other companies that are, in different industries that are similar to us, or no?
no, off the top of my head today, no,
No.
but I'm
Okay.
sure there are.
Yeah. I was curious because even when I got hired, I think I technically worked for Office H2O, or that's
Hmm.
maybe who I got my check from, but I think it was paid for by, like you were saying, like you pull from funds from different, like it was technically I worked for Artesian and Office H2O.
Right,
um so people were like, who do you work for? And I was like, well, how much time do you have, because it's kind of
right.
confusing. So yeah, it is interesting to explain, and honestly, even as an employee, to understand how everything's broken
Well,
down.
there's a difference between who you work for and how it gets paid for.
Well,
So
fair.
if, for example, your position in marketing now has been moved permanently to corporate operations at Bottles Water Holdings.
Okay.
So that's a corporate service that's available to all five companies.
Mm,
Um, and all five companies will contribute a management fee to holdings company operations to pay for that level. So who do
which
you
does
work
make
for?
sense because
Yeah,
I work for all of them,
yes, you
like,
do. So do
yeah.
I. So we're in the
Mm-hmm.
same boat. So
Interesting.
it,
Okay.
so it's one thing now that's important to understand, that one of the reasons we have the structures we do have is also labor laws. We have to pay Social Security and report, and state
Mm-hmm.
level laws and things like that. Where OmniFlow is 100% in Indy, Bottleless Nation has, wow, 28 or 29 offices today, because we have four new offices rolling up, right? Starting up right
Yeah.
now. So I can't even tell you the exact number, but it on by May we'll have probably 29 offices in probably 20 states, and as a result, we have the state level regulations and compliance issues also.
Mm-hmm.
So Bottleless Nation is set up to deal with, multi-state employment issues. We do use a professional employer organization, Insperity, that helps us manage all the complexities of this. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not completely a burden to our staff.
Yeah.
Our HR department, takes care of the details. Asperity is the co-employer.
Yeah.
So
Brand new.
even if you do work specifically for one company, Bottled Water Holdings as a whole is responsible for making sure everybody gets paid.
Yeah.
And that's, probably job number one for me is to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that, we have the right money in the right places at the right time, right?
Mm-hmm. Which I mean is it seems like a simple thing to do, but there's a lot of companies that don't do that properly to be able to pay their employees. So,
Well,
it's yeah. Um
that's not a problem for us. It's just a problem on my side, and mainly that's because of various cash flow issues. Most of the cash goes through Pure Water. We sell
mhm.
most of our, the equipment, all the contracts and everything when we sell it end up at Pure Water. So Pure
Mhm.
Water is in charge of billing and collecting. So it's natural that their cash flows need to be cycled back
Yeah, of
because
course.
everything ends up there. It's just a matter of timing and how and when, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that timing is just the liquidity and the treasury management side of the company. So
Mhm.
it's part of the plan. It's all good.
Yeah. That's very interesting. You mentioned earlier talking about some of the things that you specialize in.
Yeah,
Um did you want to go a little bit deeper
sure.
into that of, kind of what you're working on there?
Yeah, from a personal basis or from like my daily week thing.
Oh, I guess you just said things that you specialize in, so I wasn't sure exactly what you
Okay,
meant. If that
so
was
we
like maybe
special.
pre or in your role now.
Yeah, okay, so just a little bit more about myself, and then it dovetails into some of the other things I do on a weekly basis. So
Okay.
I have a undergraduate in economics, a BS, very mathy, an MBA in finance, and a CFA. A CFA is like a CPA, but for
Okay.
finance and
Okay.
investments and for valuation and Wall Street stuff. So it's very, very difficult test, equivalent or harder than a CPA. And it specializes not in the debits and credits, kind of like what the controllers specialize in, but it
Okay.
specializes in all the other facets that a CFO would face. For example, we'll now go back to our weekly deal. One of the things we do is like value the company. So currently, I'm working with a large valuation firm out of New York to put a value on the company, and that valuation is used for multiple purposes, for taxation, incentives, taxation, mergers and acquisitions, outside investments, also with the bank relationships. So there's
Mm-hmm.
multiple reasons to do this, and as a result, it provides us a lot of technical detail, a lot of academic arguments over the methodology of the valuation, the inputs used on those models. So it gets very wonky, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I do. And with the help of
Okay.
Jacob Reynolds, who's the director of FP&A, we're able to crunch a lot of data and do a lot of sophisticated analysis work in order to help satisfy those needs. So that's something I'm working on currently. I also supervise and assist in audits. Audits
Mm-hmm.
um, audits are not fun. Audits on one of the I'm the only functional area in the company that has to hire. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this. Um, an outside professional, super smart CPAs, partners in big firms uh, that can ask really hard questions and do really sophisticated testing. and they come in and analyze my work and determine if it's fair and materially correct. Doesn't need to be perfect to the penny, but it can't be too far off.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, I need to be within 1% better, 1/2 of 1% correct.
It's pretty
So
pretty specific though.
very specific. So
Mhm.
only pure water is audited, OmniFlow is reviewed, which is an easy audit, but they are, and then we're planning on a whole audit for the whole company.
Oh, okay.
So we are setting up standards of operations, and this will affect the listeners of this podcast. Setting up systems and policies and procedures that achieve that standard of a solid audited entity. Now that provide to be audited, you have to have a high degree of discipline. You have to have good policies and procedures. You have to have consistency in your accounting, and you have to do it in rhythm. And you can't do it after. If you do it after the fact, it's not good accounting. You have to do it as you're doing it because you can't think of all the details. You can't remember them. The accounting department handles um, thousands of little details every day. Now we have systems to support it, but the number of entries that are going into those systems are quite impressive. Pure Water would generate hundreds of thousands of accounting entries through their enterprise system, and they're all aggregated up. So you have to test your systems, reconcile. You have to stay on top of your bank reconciliations. You have to make sure you have consistency in how you apply your expenses to the financials. Record financial transactions have to have reason and backup. They have to follow certain rules. Well, in our business, since we have 5 sets of rules for 5 different industries, we have to understand a lot of GAAP accounting and apply it differently. And then we have to merge it all together. So one of my biggest challenges is explaining how 5 industries merge to one financial because
Yeah.
they're thinking, well, this should be a little simpler than this, but most companies just present one company and one basic operation. Well, we're aggregating all the companies into one. I'm presenting a financial. So just understanding how that process works is one of my biggest challenges. And one of my bigger responsibilities is how do we aggregate them and present them into a fully consolidated financial that makes sense, than trying to explain it to people. That's the hard part.
Is there a benefit to how it has set up versus like say, okay, we are just one in PWP, all of them, they're just one together.
Well, the
Like would that
benefits,
even
the benefit.
work?
So, in my presentations, I committed myself to minimum viable bureaucracy,
Okay.
right? And one of the reasons we have the structures we have is one is just a historical one. Pure water started first,
Right.
then artesian, and H2O started before artesian. And then, Waterdesk, we bought Waterdesk, um, and it was a standalone company on its own when we bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And then OmniFlow started separately. We started it and made it a separate company. So some
Yeah.
of it's just historical. And now we're merging them together slowly. But each merger is very technical, a lot of tax considerations, lots of employee considerations, operational considerations. So there's a legal and historical basis for why we're organized this way. The other
Gotcha.
thing too is very specific legal liabilities and liability protection. For example, Pure Water Partners borrows $160 million. It's set up in somewhat of a bankruptcy remote structure, so the banks, if need be, worst case scenario, they're asset base can go to that creditor and not affect the parent company, which is a good structural design legally.
Mm.
And so for liability protections and historical issues, that's the way it was set up.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, that makes
Omnif-
sense.
Omniflow is a manufacturer of products. There's some legal suggestion that you keep it as a separate entity, as a subsidiary, so you don't commingle the product liability issues with the parent company. So there's some
Mm.
segmentation, but also it's its own industry, etc. So it has its own accounting, and it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So there's reason that, and like H2O and Artesian were very similar in their operations. They overlap. We already we're combining operations with shared services and expenses, and we like the combined entity better. I think we picked up really good management talent, and the operations were so similar that it was a seamless mesh. Nobody seems to think any different. And then
Yeah.
the brand, and then we went to one brand. So the
Hmm.
one brand will help us achieve a better national footprint, better name recognition. We can do some advertising, marketing. It's one entity. We don't have to do two websites, etc. So there's
Yeah.
lots of
From a
synergies there.
marketing perspective, I'm very excited about the merger. So,
Yeah, and the
yeah.
accounting too. We took old co H2O and old co Artesian at the first of the year. It's just
Hmm.
one company now, and
Yeah.
trust me, it's better to have one company.
Hmm.
So, um, so we try to keep these cost centers. And then one of the other benefits of having the different entities is being able to benchmark performance against your peers. So
Yeah.
on the flow we can maintain their cost structures as a successful manufacturer should be run. Sales and service likewise. We need to structure and analyze the performance of that subsidiary based upon their operational mission and do the financials benchmark with comps. Is it hitting goals? And if we're all one company, that becomes pretty murky and a little
Yeah.
more difficult to do. And same thing with Pure Water Financial. Could we do it all under one legal umbrella? Yes, we could.
Hmm.
Um, the issue is legal, accounting, um, liability protections, specialization, demands of creditors. We do lending at Omniflow at the Omniflow level. So if we were all together, all the lending would have to be at the parent level. So that creates another set of complexities, etc. So I think
Yeah.
the way we're structured, it is it is a little complex. Um, it has a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of accounting that's very technical, a lot of new reporting that we're developing, which most people never see, but IT and FP&A and the accountants sure know the pain.
Yeah.
Um, so those new reports will help us manage as one company. But we do all the time um, analyze our financial decisions both at the subsidiary level and also as a combined holding companies level. So
So it's happening both.
best
Yeah.
example of that is we buy equipment from Omniflow. Okay, it costs market rate between pure the field buys stuff from the manufacturer at market, but on a consolidated basis, um, that equipment is half price when we combine the
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
So we do realize synergies that aren't obvious when you analyze it from the holding company versus just the subsidiary.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Just because it's something that I need, me in marketing, and I'm sure a lot of other people listening to this, like unless you have your hands in it, it's things that are happening that you don't necessarily even know about.
Mm-hmm.
But that, there's obviously some trickle down that's that happens. So yeah, it's nice to get a more, I guess, clear picture of
Yeah.
what that looks like. So that's
Yeah.
very cool.
So
What
if there's a decision that doesn't quite pencil in your mind, it may pencil in my mind
yeah,
because I'm
yeah.
viewing it from the holding companies. Hmm.
Yeah, there's a couple different views there. Totally. So I guess, do you have, we kind of talked about what's currently happening. Is there anything, the mic is yours. Is there anything that you'd like to share with people that they can keep in mind with, like, maybe future plans or something that they should know, especially,
Hmm.
with the merger that happened, anything that you want to share with
Yeah.
everyone?
So just directionally, topic 606 has changed the fundamental realities of our accounting, and
Okay.
certain things take on more importance. So we need to take care of the equipment much better and track it. So all the equipment, your work orders and what you did and things like that, the status of the inventory, not only the inventory that's available to install, but also the machines in the field at all the customers. That's
Mm-hmm.
very important. We keep those records and the serial numbers and everything accurate and updated in Waterdesk. The other thing is miscellaneous expenses related to contract setup. If there's expenses, if you have to fly in to do a walkthrough or you fly technicians to Seattle for a major LTA install, accounting department's going to need to know if the service department is supporting the sales function in
Mm.
walkthroughs, installations, and things of this nature. So these expenses of travel, Home Depot runs, lifts, rentals, legal fees on contracts, um, any miscellaneous nickel and dime expenses related to setting up a signed contract. You have a contract, you're implementing that contract. Those expenses, should be noted as the expenses go into accounting. Um,
Yeah.
I know it's brand new stuff, and that's very important. Um, so what we do is track those and we capitalize them and we put it on the balance sheet. We recognize those expenses over the course of time. In the
Mm-hmm.
past, we just expense it. Now we can smooth it out over the contract life.
Yeah.
So these
No, that
are
makes
these
sense.
are these are very difficult things. Um, hiring, work with HR, make sure we hire well. So these are the directional things that we need. Um, we're please learn ramp and follow the ramp protocols. It's very helpful on the back end, getting the expenses right and controlling spending and other things of this nature. These are all things that will help us
Mm-hmm.
tremendously. Um, you know, good ideas. We love good ideas, so please make good suggestions. Sometimes they're hard to implement, but just because it takes 6 months doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Just
Yeah.
because it takes 2 years doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Um,
Mm-hmm.
some of our best ideas have taken quite a bit of time, and that's money, bandwidth, management, things like that. So all good ideas are good ideas, and they could stay good for some time before we can actually execute on them. But just realize that there's other projects and time and money and bandwidth and sequencing of corporate initiatives and things like that. But we'd love to hear good ideas and suggestions from everybody because it may not fit in this business, but maybe we start it up or start another business.
Yeah.
We start another division. So there's a lot of near space ideas that complement our industry and things like that. Love to hear those ideas and get them up so we can evaluate them.
Yeah.
Part of my job is to see if good ideas can pencil, and
Mm-hmm.
we do it all the time. And sometimes they do, but it doesn't. It's one thing to have a good idea. Is it good enough to justify execution? And that's the tough part because we have plenty of good ideas. Um, so unfortunately, we can't do everything. But
Yeah.
we have our mission and to be great at water delivery, flavors, ice, and support the ice and water industry. To be great at that. Um, so
Yeah, I like that. Um, well, we've reached almost the end of the podcast. I have one final question that I ask every guest. So, if you could give advice to your younger self, this can be work related, not just anything. What
mhm.
advice would you give to your younger self?
um, Stay current with your skill sets. Professional development's really important. Whatever you choose to do, whether it's technical, accounting. In my world, things are changing very, very fast. So I need to learn AI. I signed up for a course, an
Love
online
it.
course. Programming, Excel skills are critical for me. Um, I don't have a lot of time to stay current in those skills, but boy, oh boy, I better, right? Because the younger
Mm-hmm.
generation, they're cranking out things in Excel that I didn't even know existed. So that's sad. So the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, the basics. If you think you're good at something, well, guess what? Technology is growing so fast, you constantly have to stay on top of it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Two is, um, you know, making sure you're keeping up on the most important things in your functional area. Don't let, um, don't, well, let's restate that. Learn to say no to stuff so you can stay on
Mm-hmm.
the main thing.
Yeah.
So if we don't hear no or pushback, we don't know that our next great request coming from leadership is killing the other great request we made 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure um, that everybody can say, hey, if uh, if a request or something impedes a previous request, that we get it prioritized and we understand the consequences of those things. So prioritizing work, um, learning to structure your work, make a plan, work the plan. If something comes up, being able to say no, I can't get it done in this time frame. We need to rethink this, and have the strength to say that, so we can manage this crazy growth we're going through. I mean,
Yeah.
you may not see it in an individual office in Oklahoma, but at the corporate office, we have 4 offices going in. We have major initiatives at OmniFlow, and we threw another one at them. So they're like crushed. So we're throwing a lot of bodies at OmniFlow and accounting right now to help them through this time frame. So we're
Mm-hmm.
surging in there. So we're adjusting, right? We're taking
Yeah.
advantage of opportunities and we're adjusting. And by by giving some feedback to your supervisors, etc., helps us manage the whole process better. So
Yeah.
those 3 things: professional development, time management, keep the main thing, um, and try to find enjoyment in the work. Celebrate your wins. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great things, and sometimes we don't catch it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a sad thing. I mean, for example, we set a record in goods and services this month. Wow, it's a big number. We did not have
Mm-hmm.
this revenue, by the way, uh, 3 years ago, and we did well over 550 this month in goods and services. Just
Wow.
that category on the so this is huge. So, we should celebrate that. I mean, we're making big wins
Definitely.
all the time. So celebrate your wins along the way. Even if your manager doesn't catch it, celebrate it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, David, thank you so much for being open with us, and to everyone tuning in to BNFM. Thank you for listening. If this conversation sparks any questions that you had for David, let us know and we'll send them his way. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.